that I may do my own commentary. I may some Tom Wilson picks a guy up and slams him on the ice.
Yeah.
Oh, the whole world loses their mind. Do I want to comment on it? Do I want to give my thoughts
Schwartz. On it? You're going to be Lonnie Schwartz.
I'm probably going to have him on, actually.
We're terrible.
Well, let's just do it then. Let's kick things off. We got episode 10, Got Hockey. Here I am with my very good friend, Lonnie Schwartz. Lonnie, I know we've got a particular tie into the number. I'm going to go George Armstrong, and you're going to go...
Guy Lafleur!
Hey,
episode
Guy.
number 10. Guy,
There we are.
Guy. Wait,
We'll
is
leave
it
that
Guy
up to
Carbonneau
debate.
or Guy Lafleur? No, Guy wore number 10. Come on, folks.
That's right.
Jeez.
Number 10. The number 10 Guy.
Yes.
Not the number 5 Guy either.
No, not the
Not to
number
be.
5. So many
As
Guys in
goalies,
Montreal.
we love our defenseman dearly, and he certainly was one of them. So
Indeed, one of the more underappreciated, I would say, out of the elites in Montreal. But we are tenders. We do thank our defensemen, and unless they're putting sticks in front of pucks and obscuring the line of sight or deciding that they're goaltenders these days, which to this day does baffle me. It's like, guys, I just bought all this gear. You really don't need to dive in front of pucks like this. You don't.
I'm good.
You just don't.
I'm good.
Yeah.
And stay on
We're
your
okay.
feet on a 2-on-1 while you're at it.
Pretty please. With sugar on top.
Yeah. So we are all goalies here, and I think the question that usually gets brought up first is what brought you to the position?
Road hockey and a certain neighbor who said, okay, you're the goalie. So that's really what started it all. And obviously the equipment is amazing and you feel awesome in it. You feel like you're in armor and everything. And aesthetically, there's not a goalie in this world who will look at you straight in the face and say, yeah, I don't care how my gear looks.
Yeah, I'm not into
we
gear
all
all that
care.
much.
We all care. And the ones who don't, you look at them like, Duster, get it together. Like, seriously, start matching some colors, pal. But point aside, that's road hockey. Obviously, you're a young lad in Canada, and my dad never played hockey. In fact, none of my family members played any hockey, but here I am in Thornhill, Ontario. I'm playing road hockey. I'm like, well, I got to skate. I got to play hockey. And I was a forward, and I was absolutely terrible. I did not understand the concept of C cuts. So skating forwards and backwards, not really happening very effectively. And by the end of the year, I'm the worst player on my team. It is house league after all. And I will never, ever forget this moment, because who does? Yale Harris, my goaltender, standing there at the West Arena at Thornhill Community Center, standing in the crease, last game of the year, vomits right on the ice. And the team is going, okay, so who's going to go in net? And I'm like, well, I play road hockey. Like, sold. Worst kid wants to go in net, get in there. No problem.
Yeah.
I've still got my shin pads. Just put the pads on. Just get in there. All right. But the shin pads, they're supposed to be. I don't care. Just get in the net. And then we got shellacked by 16 goals. And I will say, hold on. I got pumped by Mark Moore, the eldest of the Moore brothers, who by that age was already Mark Moore. So I did get pumped. I saved one shot of his. Actually, it was a breakaway. I dove. I made the stick save. I was thrilled. But 16 goals later, I'm still here. So
there you go.
And many thousands of goals later. Let's not make any illusions.
And hundreds of saves.
Yeah. Thousands of saves, I'd imagine. Thank you for looking on the bright side. Thank you. There have been thousands of saves, but also thousands of goals. And yet my soon-to-be 44-year-old body is going, hey, you're still good to play. And my 65-year-old bones are going, no, you're not. but until the two meet in between and my hip seize, I'm going to be stopping pucks. And then there's surgeries to fix that. So I'll just keep playing. Because why not?
Exactly.
It feels normal.
I remember someone saying to me once, describing his goaltending, is he's like, I don't know if I've made every type of save you can make, but I'm pretty sure I've let in every type of goal you can let in. And I immediately identified with that. So
I got a funny one for you on that. Because a lot of people, the old adage when we grew up, your post is your best friend, right? Post is your best friend. And we used to think that, Patrick Waugh would give a little kiss, a little touch. Marc-Andre Fleury still has his little ritual with his posts. I'm
Ron
like, no.
Hextall with the whole
Oh,
bing, bing,
that's
bing,
how I
bing,
warm
bing,
up.
bing, bing.
No joke, not a word of a lie. Every single game, every single time I switch ends, I do the Ron Hextall to know my net, right? No questions asked. But I now say, no, the post is not your best friend. And people are like, huh? I said, I have 2 words for you. Bar down. And they're like, oh yeah. I'm like, that became a new part of the lexicon, because usually you hear the post, it pings, and it's like, oh, okay, good. The post made the save. Now you hear the ping, and it's like,
now you're a highlight.
oh man. So yeah. The post, let's put it clearly here. You can still think it's your best friend. You ask me, no, it's the girlfriend that cheats on you with your best friend and doesn't tell you about it because the puck is behind the goal line after you thought, oh yeah, deflect. No, posting in. Did I have the angle? Oh yeah, no, you had the angle, but I just found the post. I'm like,
Yeah, you just
I did everything right, but the guy found that sliver of room posting in or bar down, and you're like, what do you do? What do you do? And that's how, I guess, from a technical standpoint, because yes, I do teach goalies for a living now. And I do tell a lot of people, you can have the angle perfect, but there are shooters out there that will find that puck's worth of room. That's what they're getting taught by. That's why guys like Tim Turk, who's a great industry professional, and you, as a goaltender, if you share the ice with a guy like Tim Turk, you want to pay attention, because he's on the forefront of teaching about how players shoot, deceiving the shot, and how to hide your release, right? The famous release right now is Austin Matthews. And who was it who was telling me that the puck is on his stick for like 1.2 seconds, if that.
Yep.
And the way he hides his release, the way he pulls in that shot towards his lead foot and then just changes direction, right? He's so quick with that. You can't help but understand and identify that the way they're shooting pucks now is not like the 80s. Like before, when we were talking about Ovechkin, if it makes the cut,
yeah,
you know, maybe it'll make the blooper reel, who knows? But we reminisce about the great goal scoring of the 80s. And I go, guys, can we be honest with ourselves for a second? You can knock off about 100 Genos from both Gretzky and Mike Bossy, because those goals along the blue line from outside the faceoff circle ain't happening in today's game. It just isn't.
You mean Stefan Richer coming down the getting over the blue line, putting his head down and just letting one fly far side? That's not going in.
No, unfortunately, I hate to break the bubble for many a member of GGSU that clings on to we should all be playing stand-up. Whatever happened? Why don't we play like Kirk McLean? Guys, do you not watch the 80s? Those goals are embarrassing. Only one coach in the history of coaching in the NHL has pulled a goalie for making a save, and that's Mike Keenan. But every single coach in today's NHL, if you let in a Stefan Richer or a Mike Bossy classic from along the ice near the blue line, and guess what? That seat right near the Zamboni entrance doors in Montreal is looking pretty good. You want to have a little seat right over there, pal? We're going to go throw in the goalie that's going to make that save.
Yeah, free ticket.
Yeah, exactly. So the game's changed a lot. That bar down noise that you hear, you do check over your shoulder with regularity now, because that's how players are taught to shoot. That's why the game has changed so very much, even since the 90s, right? The 90s, where I'm not going to get too far into it because I can literally take up a whole podcast talking about Hasek, but I'm one of those guys that states very clearly, yes, for his time, and he had a window, he had a very rare window that he could walk into that game and dominate, because guys were still shooting primarily along the ice. But you give Tyler Seguin any time of day with Dominic Hasek today, if Hasek didn't adapt his game, shall we say, to being more adept in butterfly, not on your back, in butterfly, he's getting pulled with regularity, because guys like Seguin and everyone of that generation is no longer considering the percentage. It used to be 70% low or 60% low, 40% high, whatever ratio you want to take. Well, that ratio has changed dramatically over the last 15 years. So I do often say, yeah, you can say your Haseks. That's fine. I don't argue with it as vehemently as I used to, but goalies like Brodeur, that's why when people ask, or Watts, like, who do you consider the greatest of all time? Those are the two names I debate about a lot internally, because I find their game to be transcendent. It doesn't matter if you put Patrick Waugh against George Hainsworth or against Vasilevsky today. Patrick Waugh is going to be the greatest goalie, period. To me, the ultimate goaltender of all time, if I'm to pick one, it's Martin Brodeur. because his playoff performances were still outstanding. Let's make no bones about that.
Oh yeah.
And his style to me is the most transcendent of transcendent, right? A hybrid goaltender, which was a bad word in the goalie coaching industry for like a decade. How dare you teach hybrid?
Yeah.
But now people say save selection and go, well, what I teach my kids, right? Because I'm a goalie coach. Primarily my students are not 6'5" monsters.
Yeah.
I go, if a shot's above the waist and it's from above the circles and you make a save standing up, and to get back to the joke from earlier, I know Mike Keenan isn't coaching minor hockey, so you're pretty safe by making a save standing up, right?
Yeah.
So the hybrid approach with the term save selection is finally getting its proper due. So I'm a big proponent of the hybrid technique. That's what I teach with, shameless plug, I'm sure we'll talk about it, Stop the Puck Goaltending. How do you teach? I teach a hybrid style.
We can get right into it.
Why not?
I want to be able to promote you a little bit at least while you're here. So, I mean, you have been a goalie coach in the GTA. Lots of people know Coach Launy, and maybe walk us through a little bit about how you got started in it. What drew you to the coaching, and where has that taken you along the way?
Wow. So we've talked a lot about our influences. You and I are of a similar vintage. We obviously watched a lot of goaltending from the 80s. And I was really, really lucky in Thornhill. And it actually goes back to your old digs.
Yeah.
Because Just Hockey was not always on Don Mills. And there wasn't always a Just Hockey on Steeles, even though that's not there anymore.
Yep.
Just Hockey used to be on Doncaster in Thornhill in a little industrial park. And Mike LaCicero had a little spot there where he was teaching goalies with his puck machine. And I happened to be one of those goalies. And I was one of his students for quite some time. And I was very, very fortunate in the 80s to learn the butterfly, because not as many people were teaching it in the 80s. But the new style with the new pads, Mr. Pete Smith, thank you very much for knee landings. You're a god amongst mortals. And he had to figure out a way to adapt his style to slides, right? Because the 2-pad stack was no longer a practical save. The skate save all but extinct. So he spent a summer learning a hybrid style of goaltending with the new techniques. And I took it upon myself in my late 20s to start doing that by asking a company in Toronto. And it was, I believe, Mandy Cronin mentioning his name, Jamie Maguire, very prominent name in goalie development in the GTA. And I came in for an audition, right? Mike LaCicero, when I was 17, I'm working at a movie theater, says, you'd be a great goalie coach. I said, thanks, coach. But there I am at 17 tearing tickets. I'm not really thinking about it as a career. Years later, when you get that encouragement, so this gets back to where have you played?
Yeah.
When you have college guys and junior guys and pro guys saying that we like playing against you because you test us, that builds your confidence. And that built my confidence to a point where I said, okay, first, I got to learn this new stuff, obviously. And I'm going to go to this school. I'm just going to contact them and see if they're interested in having an instructor. And so they took me on. It was a tryout. There I am skating the kids, younger groups. And more than 10 years later, I was still around. And I learned the new techniques, butterfly slide, power slide, reverse rotation, RVH, you name it. We learn this stuff. You evolve in the game. So I owe a great debt of thank you to the opportunity afforded to me by Jamie Maguire, because I wouldn't be the goalie I am today and the coach I am today if I was not afforded that. And I learned a lot from him. I learned a lot from other goalie coaches along the way. I'd be remiss to say that. And this guy, I mean, if the goalie world loses this man's acumen on the ice because he's getting older, it's Steve Davies. Steve Davies is an absolute legend in terms of goalie development. He's actually one of the original goalie coaches. Like he's been goalie coaching almost as long as I've been alive. So that speaks to how long he's been around. And so I also owe a great debt of thank you to him, because he helped mentor me after I had left Maguire Goaltending and Hockey Development. Because, you know, Jamie's a great guy, but there came a point in my career, my age, my time, where I needed to start looking out for my own. And so I spent a year developing another groups program. I'm just going to gloss over that. No need to get into detail. It ended rather contentiously. So I decided I should run my own school. I had people telling me I should. And for the longest time, I didn't have the confidence to. So then the birth of Stop the Puck Goaltending happened in 2016. And here we are, Obviously, there's been an interruption in this province, more particularly.
Couple
But-
interruptions.
Yeah, but here we are. I moved to a small town in Ontario, Eastern Ontario, called Marmora. I'd bought property here well before COVID and decided to make this my home. I own it, right? And rent in Toronto, as some people might not know, it's a wee bit expensive.
Oh yeah.
Right. Just a wee bit, like LA and New York and Vancouver and Toronto. That's your cluster of how do you not make millions of dollars and still anyway. So I move out here, and believe it or not, minor hockey, as important as it is, they only have ice here like 8 months a year because they're all municipal. And there aren't a whole lot of goalie coaches out here either. So I've been able to apply myself to get involved in organizations here. And as of, I want to say, I'm losing track of days sometimes, so forgive me, but just a couple of days ago, we became an official partner of the Center Hastings Grizzlies organization to help their minor hockey goalies in their development. And we're also going to be running some goalie clinics at the end of this month, September, in Sterling and Sterling, Ontario. Trivia, first winner of Craft Hockeyville, if I'm not mistaken. Correct me if I'm wrong. And the birthplace of many a hockey player, including one of the, I want to say it's one of the greatest calls of all time. I'm very confident, and if I'm wrong, someone's going to say it anyway. Mayday! 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 I do believe Sterling, Ontario is the home of Brad May, who I usually confuse. Now, if somebody's going to say you're wrong, it's probably because it's Rob Ray, who is famous in Buffalo for another reason.
Two good teammates.
Yeah, two good teammates who, let's just say, were well versed in the fisticuffs. That a Donnybrook was a welcome scenario for either Bradley May or Robert Ray.
There you go.
Especially if it's a drunken fan falling off the boards and pumping them with 20 shots uninterrupted.
And that's a great highlight when you and Brian Scrudlin is just sort of looking down, going, "That's interesting. That's interesting. I've never seen this before."
Just grabs this poor
Bam,
shit.
bam, bam,
Boom,
bam,
boom,
bam, bam,
boom,
bam, bam.
boom, boom, boom. You've never seen a beating like this, folks.
For those
ever.
of you who haven't, just look that up on YouTube when you're done watching this, please.
Like
And
Mike
then-
Milbury beating a guy with a shoe is one thing, and that's hilarious onto itself. But a drunk moron in Buffalo coming across Rob Ray is literally at that time. If you had annals of history, you'd write down in hockey and say, worst decision ever.
Yeah, exactly. Worst decision ever
Ever.
made at a hockey
Underline
rink.
ever.
Yeah. So it's either Rob Ray or Brad May. We'll add it in post.
Sure. You know, if I screw up, I screw up.
Not to
It's
break
going to
kayfabe
happen.
or
I'm getting
anything,
older. Getting older. The memory's getting foggy, kids. It's getting foggy. Too many pucks to the head.
So you did say Marmora, of course, a small town in Ontario. What are the differences? Because there are quite a few between being a goalie coach in a big city like Toronto, with the level of expectations and just everything that goes into minor hockey there, to maybe slowing it down a little bit to a bit more of a relaxed environment. You tell me if you notice those differences.
Man, it's night and day. I was honestly worried that I wouldn't have any clients, because in Toronto, you're booked by like the end of July.
Sure.
Like your schedule as a goalie coach or a skills coach, you're filled up by the end of July typically. And in Toronto, there's private rinks everywhere. So hockey is always going to be 365, 7 days a week. Can you get me ice 5 minutes ago?
Yeah.
And coming here, I think one of the worst kept secrets, and I'm not slanderous in saying this, in Toronto, predominantly in the Greater Toronto Hockey League, AAA programs, you have kids signing their cards in like January or February. And when I say cards to the uninitiated, it's wink, wink, nudge, nudge. We want you on our team next year, so sign this card.
Yeah.
Right. So based on performance, based on what they've seen, and based on evaluation skates that take place in January.
Yeah. Before the season is over, essentially. So what we're talking about, before the season is over, many teams, even at the AA level, but mostly the AAA level, the team is already picked. There might be one or two spots.
Tryout is a formality.
And it's sort of the worst kept secret, I think. It's one of the worst kept secrets in
and I hate it. I absolutely hate it about minor hockey. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. Right. And I'm holding back from coarse language. That's how much I hate it.
Oh, it's terrible.
Because the pressure that applies to skills coaches and goalie coaches alike is, well, now my kid's got to make this team. Now my kid, how many days a week? Well, the ice costs, well, can it cost that much? I'm like, and now ice in Toronto is so ridiculously cost prohibitive.
Yeah, because
Right.
of the availability and everything.
Exactly. But not just that. There were a lot of costs that they have to offset. And those costs now, it's not going to go down. So Toronto is a beast. It's a beast that doesn't sleep. It's got expectations every single day, all the time. And I have to say, mind you, I'm very lucky. A lot of the students and parents that I dealt with and our coaches at Stop the Puck dealt with were not one of those, hey, my kid's making the show.
Mhm.
Right. One of our mantras is we want to achieve their saves. I don't care. And I don't say this in a mean way. Like, we had a lot of select kids, and people don't know.
Yep.
Select, if you don't know, select is the best house league players playing competitive hockey tournaments and games on weekends. To me, it really is kind of rep hockey, because a lot of those kids did come down from rep hockey before. But anyhow, if I've got a goalie that wants to dominate single A or dominate their select hockey, that's great. That's their save. So getting back to that, Toronto is just an animal. It's incredible. And here, the ice being out basically from May in most municipalities, because from the stretch of Highway 7 that I'm on, so east of Peterborough, basically all the way to Ottawa, there's no ice for almost 4 months a year. They'd have to go to places like Belleville or Kingston, or, with the hopes of a private rink that will keep their ice in. But most municipalities don't. So the mentality here is tryouts are genuinely in September.
Right.
And that they're ideal for development. They don't have all these schools readily available. They'd have to go to Peterborough. They'd have to go to Belleville. So around here, the idea of a full-time goalie coach was novel to them. They're like, wait, this is your full-time job? Yes. This is what you do? Yes. Oh, well, that's nice. Pardon me. And I go, well, it's just what I do. I make a decent income off of it. There are people in the industry, colleagues, that will say, Lonnie, for a guy with that much experience, you should charge more. And I go, I understand I should, but I want a kid to be able to learn, and I want the parent to be able to afford it. So I'm just going to set my price the way I feel it's comfortable, and I want that kid to learn. And that's been applied here in Marmora. And a lot of people are turning heads going, what? Like, a lot of people don't get that about me. I'm a bit of a unique cat that way. I'm not trying to say that in a braggadocious way. People will go, yeah, that guy is like weird. He doesn't want lots of money for what he does. Like, he's adamant about it.
Which is rare in hockey.
Well, yeah, it is, because, again, I've had students who are playing at a fairly competitive level, and that their parents are putting all their money into the league fees, into equipment, especially when they're growing.
Mm-hmm.
And I had this one kid, and very, very talented. I'm not saying he made it to the show or anything like that, but I saw this talent and I said, you know what, just cover my ice costs. That's it. I don't want this kid to sacrifice good goalie coaching for the fact that you can't afford this price. Cover my biggest cost, which is ice. And so I've tried to bring that mentality in a lot of ways to everything I do. And bringing that here, it's been a real eye-opener in a good way. I do want to try and expand programs here so that there's ice maybe 10 months a year, as opposed to, because really you're asking a lot of people in these areas to drive far in perspective to get their training. And on top of that, just because the ice is gone in most of these places in April, it's the Ontario Minor Hockey Association. They're still playing in tournaments. They're still going to other areas to play. So you want these kids to have accessibility to ice in those months, like May, when you're doing the push in the playoffs. Well, ice is gone. Okay. And then all the way up until September, nothing. So one of the goals that I'm trying to bring here is to partner with the right people and help create, shall we say, some hockey tourism, and have people come here and actually have a full day's worth of a camp, but in a rural setting, in an amazing barn. I'm not kidding. I'm not saying this because Marmora Arena is my new home. This barn is classic. It's amazing. I love the place. They have a fairground at the back. There's like 3 football fields worth of activity to do. Just walk out the back. It's just one of the most complete and amazing facilities. And it's one of the beautiful things, actually, about a municipality like this, If you go throughout Eastern Ontario, just on a trip, every single municipality will have a rink.
Yeah.
Every single one. And that harkens back to when ice was 365. There were more kids in hockey, what have you. But it's really nice to see that. And the attitude, to answer more roundly about your question, it's really refreshing. It was worrisome from a professional standpoint because that's how I put food in my mouth.
Yeah.
I kind of like to earn a living so I can eat.
Yeah.
But seeing that more relaxed attitude about hockey and knowing, hey, don't worry, dude, we got you. It's just going to start a little later than what you're comfortable with or familiar with. And I've been able to adapt to that. It's actually very refreshing to know that a parent and child stress doesn't start the minute it's the new year and going, where are we playing next year? It really is refreshing to have that.
Yeah. I think I do remember one time I had a parent in with his son, and the dad had said to me, you know, I mean, at that time, this is pre customizer goalie equipment where I would be basically with a sheet of paper, I would be filling stuff in. And a lot of times the parents would say, you know, I mean, you kind of know what you're doing with those. He's playing for team X. Can we just, you know, this is the general guideline, you know? And I said to this parent, okay, so Red Wings. So you just want me to mix in white, a little bit of red kind of thing? He goes, actually, you know what? Can you do white and blue? Because next year we're going to go to the Marlies. They had literally, this was in the summer. He had not played on his team yet. And he was already planning on the team he would be on the next season. It was like, and it just creates this thing where it becomes, what are we doing here? Because like, do you even care about this season? Because you've already signed next season. But I mean, that's a whole nother thing. I don't want to get too bogged down.
We don't have to get bogged on, but it's a great jumping point, Dana, because I'm a big time realist.
Yeah.
Right. And you know me personally. You'll sit there steadfast. If there's a realist in this world, like I'm the guy that says the glass is full, and people go, "What do you mean?" Air is a mass. It occupies the empty space you perceive as empty. It's a full glass.
There you go.
So I look at Toronto and big cities, and the idea that will lead you down a road to play in the NHL. And
yeah,
I'm one of those goalie coaches that will say, let's do some math, kids. Okay. Parents too. Let's listen here. And we'll go full on to this day right now, this very moment. There are 32 teams in the NHL, meaning there are mathematically 64 jobs for your goaltender in the world, by the way, in the world, not just Toronto, not just Canada, the world. And 32 of those teams have signed a pretty decent contract for their number one. So you can take 32 jobs in a given year and your kid's not going to have one of those. And then, there are the other 16 bona fide one-way contracts for the backup goalie who's also earning just a bit north of $1 million. So in any given season, there are 16 fluctuating backup jobs because it could be a goalie that will have a two-way contract, go between the AHL and the NHL. And I try and explain in any given year, out of hundreds of thousands of goalies in the world, you're competing for 16 jobs. And again, it's big cities. It's the expectation is, you've played to this level, you should be in the NHL, or we're going to get you to the NHL. And from a mental health standpoint, we've all acknowledged at this point now that pressure on these kids is ridiculous. They end up hating hockey after a while.
A lot of them do.
So it's, to me, from a goalie coach's standpoint, from a mentorship standpoint, I really try and emphasize that there are lessons to be had off the ice and that there are things to consider and think of as a parent as well with the messaging that you're giving your kid and how you're approaching the game. We're never going to get rid of the mom or dad who lives vicariously through their kid. Like that's a pipe dream.
It's somewhat
there's always going to be that one parent. Yeah, there's always going to be that one parent smashing all that wasn't a goal, ref. What? Guy, you saw the net bulge. What's wrong with you?
Yeah.
So you're always going to have that parent. You're always going. But I am so fortunate in my neck of the woods, not here in Marmora specifically, but in my entire experience, that I had very rarely had that experience. So it's multifaceted, that question and answer, my friend. It's just it branches out to so many different things and ideals and concepts in this game, and you've seen it. And the two of us have often off camera before God Hockey started many years ago, just chatting at Just Hockey about this very concept and idea, and it's just so prevalent today. And we've tried to eradicate it in so many different ways, through policy, through it's an unfortunate element of human nature and the environment of professional hockey that we fostered, and it's not good for the kids. It's really not. So.
I think too, it's gotten to the point now where sort of the tail wags the dog a little bit too, where you end up with, well, I got to get a team in January because everybody else is doing it, and then it all sort of cascades and falls into line, and then doing the end of January thing becomes doing the right thing, and then at the end of January, the
scramble. Yeah. Oh no, I've been kicked off my team. I don't have a team next year.
Yeah,
right?
We just got told.
We just cut you. The AAA kid from the Marlies decided to come here. Sorry, you're gone. Yeah. Right? And that happens with regularity. And you sit there and you go, oh my God, you just cut this kid. And now they have to scramble at the end to find a team. And then it's, well, there's no more AAA spots left, so I guess we'll go down to AA. And I know that sounds ridiculous, but that's the exact way it's said. I guess I got to go down to AA now. And it sounds so discouraging. And I'm like, you're playing AA hockey. Right? Do you understand how much of a fraction of a difference, generally speaking? So
you could be the 25th best goalie in your age group in the city of Toronto. That's that kid's playing AA. I mean, typically, obviously,
and it's really sad, and unfortunately, it's not going to change in Toronto. I don't see it being prevalent here, and I enjoy that. It was, like I said, professionally, you're worried because it's like, it's September. How am I not full on my calendar yet? But now it's September, and it's like, oh, we're getting you in on the clinics. You're going to be at these team practices. So that mentality and that approach in rural Ontario, at least, has been very, very refreshing. And you see the change in mentality and approach by the parents and the expectations generally. Now, it's not to say that I've met and run into every single parent, but
sure,
everybody I have run into has a more laid back approach to the expectations and what the game is about. So it's nice to have that here. And now that this is my home base, come next season, hopefully when there's a little more ice through some of the programs we want to do, but still, it won't be, oh my God, it's September. Our calendar's not full. What are we doing here? What have we done wrong? So that's just where it's at. And it feels good, baby.
Good. Well, that's really the most important thing, is that, you can be in an area where you can work and make a living and be happy. And you've got Hockey House, and and that's home based for you. And there you are, and you're out of that rat race. And then you're into something that probably, even for you, just from a mentality standpoint, is probably a much better fit anyway. And I think that's probably, like, moving forward, just for who you are. I think, even I would say, from my observations, I think that's a good a spot as any for you. So,
and I love it, man. I really do. And I don't say this disrespectfully. There's going to be business that brings me to Toronto. I have a lot of clients still there, but it's on a personal note, during the last couple of years, I don't know how I would have adapted if I was still in Toronto, but knowing that I have the security of a roof over my head and a very peaceful surrounding. And while, again, folks, Dana and I are good friends off camera here. We've known each other a long time, and through social media, we've had personal chats, and it's been difficult, but knowing what's here, it grounds me in a way that it's like, okay, get through the day, enjoy your view, go on your walk, because I live right across from a river. It's a beautiful view here, and there's a great lake just right around the corner from me. And it gave me that time to, I'm still in my own thoughts a lot, and they swirl, because goalies do that. We obsess over things. Doesn't matter if it's goaltending or not. But the peacefulness of this environment really gave me that extra step back. So it was nice to have from a mental health standpoint, and just, you know, Toronto overwhelmed me even at the best of times. It really did. And the grind in Toronto, in our industry, it's funny. We talk about where I'm at right now. And then I'm a full-time goalie coach in Eastern Ontario. And they go, so are you willing to drive 40 minutes to go to Belleville if we're going to go to Belleville? I'm like, yeah. And I don't even hesitate. And they're like, well, you didn't even hesitate there. I'm like, well, first of all, it's a 40-minute drive going about 100 kilometers an hour. And in Toronto, a 40-minute drive usually means it's 5 minutes away, but
right.
There's like 100,000 cars occupying the left lane going 40 when it's 60. And you're sitting there going, good Lord, please don't let my head explode like scanners. Good Lord, please don't let that happen, because it's the most stressful drive. And anyone in Toronto, I'm going to joke about this right now. This is a bit of an inside joke for Toronto, but going from Chesswood Arena, which is a very central North York based arena, to the absolute worst commute ever of Ted Reeve, which is in the beaches area of Toronto, on a good day, that's stressful.
Yes.
When you have to get from the rink at 5 o'clock for a 6:15 practice, that is the most stress-inducing drive of any coach's life. You say to any coach in Toronto, unless they're based in the beaches and like south of the Danforth, they're like, hey guys, Ted Reeve. Oh God. The reaction is always the same. Guy, hey, I'm coaching in Thornhill. You able to get to Ted Reeve?
Not a chance.
How much time do I have?
Yeah.
And
what
has
time
a
of day is
teleporter been invented yet? Because I'm not going to get there.
That's right.
Nightmares. I'm literally having flashbacks right now. I did it to myself, though. I
let's
only have
steer the
myself to
ship.
blame.
Let's steer the ship in a slightly different direction. Something that will no doubt bring calm and serenity. You do have another life aside from goalie coaching, and I think it's more of a previous life now, but I think you'll probably still end up with some opportunities, and that's your media life, whether it's radio and TV and that sort of thing, to blogs and other things like that. A lot of people do know you from those things as well. Not many of my guests have a nicer microphone than I do, and you know, so that has also been a big part of your life, but with some great highs and with a few lows as well. So, what brought you to that? What did you think you were bringing to the table, so to speak? We don't have to get into the darker side of things, but
we'll go. Look, transparency and honesty, and influence, and it all started, I want to say, in grade 7. Where the voice of the Leafs, and I don't even think he had coined Holy Mackinac yet, was Joe Bowen. Joe Bowen comes to my grade 7 class, does a guest lecture, and says, this is what I do. And I'm like, oh my God, this is great. He travels, he talks about hockey, play-by. It's amazing. I go running home. I say, Mom, Mom, I want to do this job. And she goes, Lonnie, you know, if you have a family, you'll never be around your family and you'll always be traveling. But Mom, it's up. Lonnie, you should be home with your family. I'm like, oh, okay. So then we fast forward to high school. I get into a co-op program for media, and all the credit in the world to Rita Brule, Mrs. Brule, now Mrs. Fine. I said to her, look, media co-op, we all know I'm going to the National Film Board and filing papers all day. Can I not do that, please? Like, if I wanted to file papers, I could have taken any other co-ops. I could have just volunteered in an office. What can we do? And she hooks it up with Q107 and AM 640. And I was the first co-op student they had in years. So I had to be on my best and brightest. And I was. It was the highest mark I ever got in school. I think I got like 92% in that class. And I had a blast. Yes. And I learned broadcasting. So wouldn't you know, I come home to Mom and I say, Mom, this is the co-op I'm doing. She says, you know what would be a great job for you, Lonnie? If you did play-by-play for hockey teams. You know, Mom, in grade 7, do you remember what you said when I came home saying I want to do that? Oh, I never said such a thing. I'm not making it up, Mom. But anyhow, that parlayed itself into my going to Ryerson's radio and television program, learning to become a proper broadcaster. And you learn interview techniques. One of which I learned was you try to have a conversation, which is what we're doing. And you always want to try and listen to what the subject is saying, because they might say something and you could have a script, but if they say something that's really, really important and you don't latch onto it, you're not doing your job.
Right.
You're not having that conversation. You're not engaged. And so I always found that to be very poignant. And another lesson that I had learned, and this does go back to when I was doing my co-op at Q107, and I say this respectfully, a lot of broadcasters fill time with it's a crutch, as we call it in the business. And what Dave Barker, who is another mentor of mine, said, take a pause. You ever watch Jim Rome? Like, I just did it right there. Now, Jim Rome is the worst example. It's, hi, I'm Jim Rome. And on today's show, Jim, talk. You can take a pause to compose yourself. Talk. But you compose yourself and you talk. And so that, like I said, it parlayed itself into wanting to do radio and television. But for many, many years, personal life took the front seat and my desire to be in the business took a back seat. And it wasn't until I was in my late 20s, 30s that I started a website called hockey54.com. And this is prior to On the Bench, Spittin' Chicklets, all these guys who, and I think the only media personality who was engaging athletes, more specifically basketball players, but athletes in general, was a classmate of mine named Cabral Richards. And his interview style was, again, conversational, a little bit irreverent, and came off as a fanboy. But I mean, Cabby knows basketball, right?
Sure.
Kobe Bryant doesn't invite you to fly in his helicopter because you're good old chums on camera. He knew his stuff, and hockey is my wheelhouse and always has been. So there I am, starting hockey54.com, trying to interview hockey players and doing it in a conversational style. But I will say this, I do have to give credit to a gentleman by the name of Josh Schachter. Josh Schachter invited me at a point to be a media personality for his website, hockeybarn.com. And I went to the Elgin Theater. This, I do believe, was the last year the NHL awards were in Toronto before they went to Vegas. And there I am sitting next to, well, not sitting because I didn't have a seat and I wasn't in a media pit, but there I am right on Yonge Street, microphone in hand, right next to the media pit. And I'm asking these questions and these players are like, oh, geez, this guy's, what's he at? And then people in the media next door, I was like, we're just sticking our microphone in front for your questions because you seem to know what you're talking about. And I'd always ask questions. I'd ask questions about gear, and I'd ask questions about what went on the ice, something a little more personal, and not personal in a bad way, by the way. One thing I always drew the line in the sand about was gossip and what goes on behind the scenes in, shall we say, a little more of a negative light in hockey. I never touched on that gossip, but I'd bring up stuff from their past in a way like, so I'd ask Steve Stamkos about the Bosu ball challenge or something from high school. You know, can you balance the Bosu? Can you do that? And he's like, huh? I asked him about the Green Bays one year. And the Green Bays at the time were unbeknownst to anybody. But every summer, Steve Stamkos would come back to Markham, Ontario, and play in a charity hardball game for a friend that had passed. And he was like, I don't know how you know about that. And it just so happened to be because I knew people who knew him and grew up playing with him. So I was starting to catch players off guard in a good way, ending up having good conversation. There were players at a certain point in that career span that went out of their way that if they saw me, they're like, hey, come on, let's get this one-on-one, right? Because I'd have fun. I'd always ask questions that were not typical. And I even surprised, like, if you want to talk goalies, I went up to Jimmy Howard one day and I'm like, hey, how does it feel to smash all the NCAA records that were set by, Ryan Miller, Marty Turco? And he's like, I did that? I'm like, yeah. And he's like, I didn't even know I did that. So when you blindside players with that, you immediately grab their attention in a good way and you engage in a conversation with them and they end up generally respecting you. However, my delivery was fanboy enthusiasm with journalistic integrity, as we dubbed it at one point. And the NHL was not impressed as an organization. And most team reps were not fans of my style either. Like, you saw their backs get up. It's like, this guy's wearing a hockey helmet. I used to wear an SK 2000 to interview players. And then that became a distraction. And people, it's unprofessional. So here I am saying, all right, I guess I got to rebrand. It didn't matter what I wore. It never mattered. They always found a way to object to how I conducted myself. And sure, there were some rough spots, right? There were times where, yes, I probably shouldn't have interviewed that player in the hallway. I get it. You gave me a little slap on the wrist. That's great. I'm sorry. But the way that it was perceived is very different as it is today. You have guys who literally have careers wearing hockey helmets, wearing cowboy boots, and saying "Sully," "wheel," and everything else.
Mhm.
Whereas 15 years ago, that was not welcome. Bloggers were almost universally unwelcome. Like the New York Rangers said, zero, no, none. Like no blogger is too many.
Yeah.
Same thing with Toronto. And now it's everywhere. And now that style of broadcasting, like Biz Nasty and Ryan Whitney, they've got careers with that now. Like Barstool Sports. And I'm not saying this in a jealous way, but I look at that and I go, well, that was Hockey 54. I'm not a billionaire or a publicly traded company. I was a pariah for it. So I guess I'm glad you guys are able to make careers out of what I was basically run out of the media for. And I say that, some people say, well, have you tried? They all know me. There's not a single person in that industry who's still there. People don't get that. People in broadcasting generally keep their jobs for like decades at a time.
Mhm.
They all know who I am. Like I guarantee you, if one of those executives walked into Just Hockey and he said, Lonnie Schwartz, oh, that guy. Right? They all know it. But there's not a single one of them that can genuinely look at any of the footage at this point and say, that was terrible. Because every one of my questions was legit. I don't want to sound jealous, but I can't help but look and see who's got careers and who's making a ton of money doing something that, again, I basically became an industry pariah over. We even alluded to it when we were quasi-recording earlier. I was on a conference call with the Montreal Canadiens, and I had the credentials. It's not like I found a way. I was on their list. And this was right after Yaroslav Halak set the world on fire, got Montreal further in the playoffs, and Carey Price kind of took a bit of a back seat. But Carey Price at that point was still a career winner and a blue chipper of blue chippers. And I knew that. Like that's my wheelhouse. I was already a goalie coach, a fairly well-established goalie coach at that time. And here I am seeing this blue chipper and people are like, yeah, we should trade him. No, that's the franchise. You do not. Yaroslav Halak had a great playoff. Trade him for Lars Eller. But I digress.
Who did play
There's
quite a
Carey
while
Price.
for the Habs?
Third liner penalty killer. Jesus Christ. Here's the hottest goalie in the league. Yeah, what are you going to give us? I'll give you Lars Eller. Exactly what we need. Montreal has not had 100 point. Montreal has not had a player to score over 100 points since Mats freaking Naslund. Okay, I don't need another third line.
That is a great stat. Like that's like 40
years. It's almost 40 years. We haven't had a 100-point goal scorer in the most storied franchise of all time in over 40 years. It's ridiculous. But anyway, I'm on this conference call, and it really is a microcosm of how I was viewed, because I asked Carey Price about gear. Right, he had just gone from CCM to Vaughn, to CCM. Pardon my flub, kids. Don't kill me on that one. Goes to CCM.
This is live.
Yeah. Yes, that's right.
Hot
so,
mics.
so he transfers over gear, and I ask him about gear, and people are like, "You ask him about gear for?" Do you not understand the significance of this? I talk about gear because it's important. Carey Price was only wearing Vaughn his entire life, and he switches over to CCM. That's a big deal for goalies.
Yeah.
I also talk about how players, notably Maxime Lapierre, and at the time Mike Camilleri, were defending Carey Price. And you fast forward literally to this playoff, and Carey said the exact same thing because he's the hardest on himself. Maxime Lapierre and Mike Camilleri said, we need to play better in front of him. And I brought that up. And what are you doing complimenting players? It's unprofessional. And I said, but it's professional to tear strips out of them and say that about their career. That's professional. Well, we don't do it in the conference call. Who cares where it is? You make a career out of ripping guys. You're not even a goalie. You were the guy who was championing that we should keep Halak. Like, seriously, dude. Seriously. And you're lecturing me about can't say you're a fellow goalie and all this, like all those semantics and all the way you get treated. You know, I know everybody likes to say, well, you should put it past you, this, that, and the other. Like, look, ifs, buts, sugar, nuts. Right? You know me very well. I'm not the kind of guy who's going to forget. I don't take things terribly lightly a lot of times, even though I should. I'm not the most fun at parties, so I generally don't go to parties. So, you know, those experiences, again, I'm grateful that I had them. It's a slice of my life that I can look back on. Like, yeah, I interviewed these guys. There's video footage of having conversations. There's video footage of a hero of mine, Martin Brodeur, blown away by questions. And then later in private saying, you're like the best interview I've had, I think, in years. It was an interesting time. It was a window of time where that style of broadcasting was almost universally unwelcome. And I felt the brunt of that. Like, again, I could fill a whole lot of space just with that alone. So when I look at the broadcast landscape now and I see what people are able to do, great. You've been afforded that opportunity, but I paid a very heavy price for that one. And a lot of it was my reputation, my character. And I didn't like that. You know, you only have your name, you only have your character, and you only have your reputation at the end of the day. And when that gets called into question, and that publicly gets called into question in many facets, and then it affects your life, because I couldn't get a job in the business. Like you alluded to the dark time. And for those unfamiliar then, on season 2, I was kicked off of Drafted. And it was because I was told that I breached my confidentiality agreement. This was while I was in Vegas doing, actually, this was, I believe it was when Just Hockey sponsored our trip. Could be mistaken, but we'd gone to Vegas.
That was one of the NHL
awards.
Trips, I think.
They said that you breached your confidentiality.
Yeah.
Right? Now, I can never remember ever saying I made it to Drafted 3, which is what would have breached my confidentiality, or Drafted 2, sorry. That would have breached it. I'm very careful with my language. I mean, yeah, I got excited. I got a phone call. Well, I just made it to a reality show, you know? And so I'm just going to put it out here. Had I made a reference directly to Drafted 3, and I don't recall as such, but there's apparently a bunch of reporters that did hear me say that, and I'll accept that then. Like, here we are. Okay, I'm going to accept that. Fine. If you're going to be adamant to this day that I did say Drafted and that I made it and I did, in fact, breach my confidentiality, I'm sorry. Like, what more can I do? Right? I got kicked off of television, or kicked off the TV show. I got humiliated on national television. And here I am. It's like more than a decade now. And I look at that and I go, so people will hire former athletes who have criminal records longer than my leg. You'll rehire other broadcasters who have openly violated confidentiality agreements. And here I am with all of you knowing who I am, all of you seeing that I still make certain attempts here and there sporadically to at least voice my opinions and try and articulate what I feel about the game and sports, and not a peep. Right? And so I kind of give up on that. There's a personality out there that I know sometimes we squabble about, and I'm not going to name him because he's made a career for himself. And good for him, but the guy had never played a lick of hockey in his life. And here he is talking about hockey. Like, it's one thing to be a fan and talk about it, dude, but you're talking about hockey on a level that you have no business talking about. I know that sounds like I'm pulling the complete opposite, but like, dude, if you're just learning to skate right now and you're talking about the game, no. You can have opinions as a fan. That's fine. Your expertise, everybody's got those. If you're starting to talk about the game, son, you got no clue. You can't get into the mindset of a hockey player. You can't speak to the mindset of the play. There's nothing you can contribute from a professional and analytical standpoint or engage in a player in a way that is genuine. Dude, I've been a goalie since I was 7. Whether I played in the show or not, doesn't matter. Goaltending is a brotherhood, period. And so is hockey. You cannot, honestly, doesn't matter where you played. If you are a competitive person, and I am very competitive. I've had to tone it down because I'm super competitive. Doesn't matter if it's shinny. And as a goalie, you have to be competitive because everybody's like, why are you trying to make the save? I don't know. Why didn't you try and play defense? Right? You're always competitive as a goaltender. So you understand those mindsets. You understand the nuances of the game. There's no person in this world who plays this game. You can even ask Wayne Gretzky. You can ask anyone who sees the game the best. Well, goalie, period. They'll always answer that. Because when you're in the crease, and a great example, the greatest example of all time is the most iconic pose in goaltending of all time. And that's Ken Dryden. Yeah. Everybody's like, Ken Dryden's just standing there doing nothing. No.
Which the two of you famously recreated in a photo.
We did. I can't lift the shirt very well, but I do have a big old tattoo of Ken Dryden in his mask right there. And it's in that pose. Every millisecond of every detail of everything that's happening in the other zone was being processed. People don't get that. People will never get that if they never played the game. They will never get that if they haven't stood in the crease, ever. So it's those things tied in with broadcasting, the experience on the ice, in the dressing room, and no, it wasn't in an NHL dressing room. I can't sit there and say, yeah, that's what, Adam Oates was saying that. Like, I can't give that.
Yeah.
But, hockey dressing rooms are fairly universal, right? The mentality is fairly universal. So while I will never be able to accurately quote any professional hockey player of what they've said in a dressing room, the experience on the ice and in the dressing room only changes with the bank account, and that's it.
Yeah,
right?
Generally speaking, yeah.
Right? Like, I know that sounds like it's really basing things down, but at the end, when you're on a team, you're on a team.
Mm-hmm.
And we all kibitz the same way. We all chat the same way. We just happen to be in far worse shape, and we have a pilly or two after the game.
Mm-hmm.
So really, that's why I felt I was able to bring a very unique look in terms of broadcasting. It's the way I look at the game all the time. It doesn't shut off ever. And it's the way I just look at the game, playing it and broadcasting it, and how I interact with players about it. So it all marries together very nicely. Your education, your experience doing something you love, and just the way we're talking, man. And the way I communicate on the ice and with parents and try to convey a message, it all comes from the same pool. It all comes from an experience in broadcasting and how to communicate effectively. And over the years, various other job experiences on how to manage people. We're all managing individuals, right? That's why those dinosaur coaches don't exist anymore in the NHL, because they don't manage an individual in a scheme of a team game. Right. The coaches that fail are the ones like John Tortorella, for all his shortcomings. A lot of people fail to recognize that he truly did adapt to that mindset when he was in Columbus in a lot of ways. Sure, there were players that upset him in a lot of ways, and he was very vocal about that. But there comes a point, too, when you're managing individuals in a team, and 17 of the other guys are buying in, and he's managed them accordingly. Yes. But then there's this one guy. It's like, dude, you were picked this high in the draft and you're supposed to score and you're not doing it. I don't know how many more ways I got to communicate to you on how to do what you're born to do. So you have very few coaches that are around that have that old school mentality. Maybe they're all in the KHL now. I don't know. Russians are generally used to military style exercises and
it plays better.
Yelling for training. Yeah. It's like, coach, dude, it's like minus 800 outside and I'm in my gitch. You go run lap. I can't move my leg. Figure it out. Like, that's the way the training was there. It probably still is to this day. Like, they probably have an old Russian Red Army base that still is. We don't talk about. Yeah. Guys go there. How do you get so good? You don't want to know.
Yeah. You don't want to. I had to. I didn't have a choice.
The horror. The horror.
So maybe we'll sashay a little to something else, to something that another experience you had that's very unique for some people. You got to represent both your country and your faith. You got to play in the Maccabi games in I believe it was called the Masters Division or the Senior Division.
Masters, because we are masters over the age of 40.
Jeez, by the time you get to that age, you better be a master at something. So,
or a master of none.
Exactly. Yeah. So you get to go to Israel. You get to take part on on Team Canada, and you get to don the pads with a good group of guys, and you guys made it all the way to the finals.
Yeah, that Dana is one of the greatest. It is not one of. It's the greatest hockey experience of my life.
Mhm.
Right? You don't ever get to just haphazardly say, "Oh yeah, I'm playing for Team Canada." Right? And we got the sanctioned jerseys, we got the logo. I'm wearing the shirt right now, actually. We got these shirts. It was in honor, actually, of Jean Beliveau, who was chef de maison for many, many years. He went to Israel and traveled with the Canadian team, and he was a big ambassador. And unbeknownst to a lot of people, it's the third largest multi-sporting event in the world after the Olympics and the Pan Am Games. It is the Maccabiah Games, the World Maccabiah Games in Israel. So I'm 40 or kicking 40. And a teammate of mine for many years said, "So you're going to try out?" I said, "For what?" He's Maccabiah. I go, "Huh?" He's like, "Yeah, I'm managing the team. We need a good goalie. We want you to try out." And I said, "Wait a minute, you need a good goalie?" And he said, "Yeah, because I'm really I try to be as humble as I can about my skill set. I really don't like when people, yeah, he's good. I'm like, oh, crap, and I'm going to get lit up this game. It's going to be worst experience.
Bring on the expectations.
Yeah. Hey, guys, we got this guy playing. He's great. Then you come in, you shit the bed, and you let in 8 goals on 10 shots. And like, I thought you said he was great. So there's the weight of those expectations. But I made the team. And you go to Israel and you form incredible bonds. And then you play in this tournament, and people in Israel don't have a lot of access to hockey. There's
an
arena in northern Israel called it's Canada, the Canadian. Why is it escaping me right now? Jeez. Anyhow, a couple of fairly wealthy Canadians built an arena in Metula, which is the northern part of Israel. And there's apparently a figure skating rink in Tel Aviv or Eilat. But we played against the Americans in the very first game, in Jerusalem. The very first hockey game ever to be played was at Pace Arena. A bunch of NHL owners got together and said, "We'd like to contribute and turn this facility into an arena." It's a basketball arena. It's designed for basketball. Huge sport in Israel is basketball. And so here we are in Jerusalem playing in this massive stadium or arena and playing hockey for Canada. And when you wear that jersey and you know it's for the country and you know it's for the people that you're part of, it's really special. And the tournament's rosters were mixed, but the Ukraine was there. The Ukraine rounded everything out. Now, worst kept secret in the world, most of the players on the Ukraine were the ish in Jewish. And last I checked, Alexei Zhitnik with a gigantic cross on his shoulder. Not so sure he's celebrating his Jewish background, but he was the captain of that team. And not only was he the captain, everybody else on that team had some degree of experience playing Division I or KHL. We had one guy on our team who played in the NHL almost 20 years prior. So in the final, and this is after a round robin where they walked through everybody, including us. And just to walk backwards a hair against the Ukraine in this round robin game, I got the nod to start. And when you want to talk about the mental game, I got in my head way too much. I got way too intense. I was not my normal self, and I'm a generally intense guy, but I was far more intense and hard on myself in mental prep than I ever should have been. And so we lost. I got pumped real hard in the first period. I let in 4 goals. They were shitty goals. I knew they were shitty goals when they went in, and I knew I was just overthinking everything. I got pulled. I knew it. The 4th goal, I'm getting pulled. I looked to the bench, go. I'm not angry. I knew. And my other goalie partner comes in, and unfortunately, he got pumped. And so I got back in later. And I was a lot more relaxed. And I was able to watch how these guys play. And you see like a full professional hockey team. That's what they were. And so by the time you get to the final, you understand what you're up against. You understand you got to take your prep a little differently, Schwartz. And I think I faced 80 something shots. That's what one of the kids said. Like when I say kids, teenager, one of the guys on the team brought a couple of family members, and he's like, Lonnie, I think he took like 80 something shots. And I went, well, considering we spent maybe a collective 10 minutes in their zone, yeah, that probably makes about sense.
That math probably
We're a little overwhelmed when you see a retired Alexei Zhitnik, who's a defenseman, go in the corner and do, a little Jimmy and evade two of your own guys in the corner. You're sitting there going, okay. So
here we go.
Here we go. It was an amazing experience. We ended up losing in the final 6-1, 6-2. Sorry, it was a 6. Now I forget, but I know I only let in 6 goals, and I was just in the zone. And what really helped, and again, I referred to him earlier, and I like to give credit where it's due, is this is at a time where Braden Holtby is probably the 1B goaltender in the world. And Mitch Korn had done extensive work with him, obviously. And one of the great pieces of advice that Holtby was providing for people at that time is he said, the puck doesn't care if it's the playoffs. The puck doesn't care if it's the Stanley Cup. It's the puck. Whether it's an exhibition game or a game 7, it's still the puck. And it doesn't care. So it gave me that mindset. Well, okay, like I've always fixated on the puck, but giving it that idea that the puck doesn't care that this is the final of the Maccabi games, just focus on the puck, one save at a time. Don't count the shots. One save at a time. Just get yourself in position, make one save at a time. So thank you, Mitch, and thank you, Braden, for bringing that to the goalie world in a larger platform, because I truly think it's one of the great pieces of advice that is timeless now. That's what I tell a lot of my goalies when I'm teaching. Look at the puck as an inanimate object that does not care about what's going on, who's in the stands. Just focus on it. It's your job. So focus on that puck and the play at hand, and that's it. And so that game, I got MVP, and I was very fortunate for that. I felt very honored by that because it's a team game. So when you get an individual recognition, as great as it is, it's a little uncomfortable because, believe it or not, people are watching. How does this guy not want to be the center of attention? Well, I'm a bit of an introvert in my personal life and my private life. Obviously, I can speak all day long, but the minute the camera's off, I'm just happy just sitting on my couch watching The Office for the 10th time.
Lonnie.
Yeah. So that kind of recognition was important, though, because we all, at the end of the day, like to see how we perform and it getting recognized. So that was truly one of the great honors, on top of just really, again, you said it right at the beginning. You play for your country, you play for your people, you play in the very first, like there's never going to be another first game in Jerusalem ever. Yeah. So there's a lot of special things that happened and a lot of bonds that were created that I even had before. These were guys that I played hockey with before, a lot of them. But then, somebody jokingly says, "Hey, how does it feel to be the best 40-year-old Jewish goalie in the world?" I'm like, well, when you put it like that, I guess a lot of people really didn't try out. So, so it was an honor. It was an experience like no other. The World Maccabi Games are coming again soon. I am not going to be on that roster. No malice, no nothing. It's just timing and finances and what have you.
Yeah.
But if there's one time in my life that I could say I participated in a sporting event that represented my country and the Jewish people, yes, there are many Jewish people who play hockey, but by and large, but yes, it was a huge honor. And maybe after he's turned 40, Mike Camilleri will play. He qualifies, kids.
Yeah.
His mom's Jewish.
Half Jewish.
He's Jewish.
Just the good half. To steal a line.
Look, he got the really tasty food from dad's side, and then he got the Passover food from mom's. I'm going with that on the food side every day, every single day. Hey, you want some ragu? Yeah, some good sauce. Hey, you want this gelatinous blob of what we call fish? No,
I'm good.
I'm good. How in the hell did a conversation deviate to gefilte fish as an overtime meal?
I'm not sure, Lonnie. You take me to strange places, my friend.
Oh, I do what I can free of charge, my friend.
Yeah, exactly.
Free of charge. Free of
Well,
charge.
I think if there is one thing we can all take from this conversation and really, really focus in on, it's that Alexei Zhitnik is Jewish. And I think we should wrap it on that because I know you got to go. I know you got to get on the ice.
Oh my God. By the way, Alexei Zhitnik, I will say, super nice guy.
I
One of
bet.
the funniest things, he's sitting there at the pool, right? We're all at this same hotel. He's sitting there in the pool and he has hockey cards ready to sign for everybody. And I walked up to him to say hi, just to say hi. And he's like,
And he's just going,
Like,
there you go.
I'll take it. But
There
I'm
you
like,
go,
I just
kid.
wanted to say hi. You know, I just wanted to chat. I know we're opposition, but we're all here at the same hotel. You know, so I gotta even say, you know, the guys on the Ukraine were awesome. There are guys that I'm still friends with from that experience, and we sometimes talk on social media. So yeah, but none of them are Alexei Zhitnik. I don't think he hit the accept on the friend request. I don't think I've sent one to him.
Well, maybe you'll just have to give it a shot and see what happens.
Oh,
So Lonnie, why don't
man.
you tell us where we can find you if we are in that neck of the woods, even if we are in the GTA and we are looking to bring you in either for our team or for private lessons and things of that nature. How do we get a hold of you and how can we get you to a rink near us?
Well, let me first say that Stop the Puck Goaltending is a team. We've got great coaches on staff. So even while I am here in Marmara, we've got great guys, and they all come from the top down. They teach like I do. They have the same mentality and approach. So if I'm not available and you go to stpgoaltending.com, you hit contact and let us know what you're looking for. And if I'm not available, because my home base is 2 hours away, we got great staff and a lot of great guys that I've mentored over the years that do a fantastic job. And if it's anybody in Eastern Ontario, outside of Peterborough, Belleville, I like to say that I am Peterborough, Belleville, and let's just generally say Calidar, if you know where Calidar is, and all points in between. I'm more than happy to travel to those rinks because, hey, it beats a Toronto drive every day of the week and definitely twice on Sunday. So if you're in the Eastern Ontario region and you're looking for a goalie coach, not a parent who played 30 years ago, but a goalie coach, the landing spot is stpgoaltending.com. And we've got all kinds of information about where we offer our services and how to get a hold of us. So visit Stop the Puck Goaltending at STP Goaltending. Oh, God, I just did the hammy dip. Come on now. I couldn't help it. stpgoaltending.com. And if I may return the favor, I'm really hoping you're dressing kids and helping them get geared up, Dana. There's very few people in this business who are as good as you are in it. And, you know, you've always been a great contributor. I see, you know, again, we're friends offline, online. We're members of very similar groups on Facebook, and the answers that you give and the insight that you provide to a lot of parents and other goaltenders, it's phenomenal. You're a great resource, and you answer questions fairly and honestly, because there are a lot of people in your position. Oh, no, this is the brand you want, or this. No, you're always the guy that says it's all about personal preference. It's all about how it fits your body and how you feel protected. I'm not going to sell you something you don't want. I want you to just feel protected. And even when it comes to the parents and the mental approach, let's just say you're a little more diplomatic than I am at times. Let's just say possibly. And it's excellent. We spend a lot of time talking about me, and that tends to make me feel uncomfortable at times. But I have to say that, again, over the years, I've been very fortunate to become your friend, learn a lot about gear in the industry from you, right? People say, how do you know so much about hockey? I'm like, well, you don't just go to just hockey and get outfitted with gear. You spend a good 3 hours talking with Dana or Sean or any of the other guys there. And they're like, I'm sorry, what? Three hours is an obscene amount of time to be talking about hockey at a hockey store?
Not
yes.
so much.
No, it's
That's
not
not a
wrong.
stretch.
I'm not wrong. You're wrong. So again, we spent a lot of time talking about me, but what you do for the game and how you go about doing it for the game. And honestly, the progress you've made, even doing these podcasts, it's fantastic to see. And your contributions to the game should not go unnoticed. I got to say, there's probably thousands of kids in the greater Toronto area and all of Ontario that have come your way, got suited up properly. And these parents are like, man, I'm glad I met that Dana guy. I've got great fitted equipment, spent the money I wanted to spend, no more, no less. He even tried to save me some money, and he got my kid into the gear he needed. And that I don't think should go unnoticed.
Thank you, Lonnie. Thank you. I do appreciate the words. That always is the goal, or as you would say, that always is the save. And again,
credit to Jacob Jensen. Jacob Jensen, one of my students. I cannot not give credit. I say saves, but he coined it.
Shout out to him.
Shout out to Jacob. You're an awesome kid. We don't have goals, coach. We have saves.
And there we have it.
How much better could you answer that question than that? So,
exactly.
Thank you, Dana. Thank you, Dana. Thank you for
And
sharing your saves.
I will definitely have you back on again sometime in the future to reconnect and to do it all over again. So
Let's do it. Let's do it again. While I get off the clip. Let's do it again. Where's the butter? Exactly. It's Guy Lafleur, which, by the way, is one of the greatest Canadian commercials of all time. We remember the dad with the son. He's like,
hey,
Guy Lafleur.
There's that one, and then there's also I think it's the Hungry Man dinner. That's another one that's got to be right up there.
Oh, there's some beauties. There's the greatest of all time, though, is easily something that commemorated the pioneer of, shall we say, quasi-modern butterfly. Tony Esposito walks into the bar for Miller Lite.
With the mask,
greatest
commercial.
Who's this guy? Who's this guy? Puts the mask on. Everybody's
Tony.
Yeah. Tony Esposito.
Yeah. That's definitely leave it up to the beer companies to really nail it with one there, right?
Yeah, at least they know how to put pads on right in the commercial too.